There it sat, half hidden beneath harsh shelf, lighting like a forgotten manual in the corner of a surplus depot, the Ruger 10-22. Slim, light, and sporting a classic hardwood stock, this rimfire rifle chambered in .22 long rifle seemed more suited to a weekend hike or scout camp than any serious prepping loadout. For decades, it was shrugged off good for teaching the basics, sure, or maybe for casual backyard plinking. But it was quiet, modest, and maybe a little too old school for the spotlight. Then something changed, not with flashy ad campaigns or high-budget influencer shoots, but slowly and deliberately. A few folks in the prepping world started to take notice. One bought one, then a few more followed. Before long, shops couldn't keep them on the shelves. This is how a humble little rimfire, long overlooked by the tactical crowd, carved out a place in serious preparedness circles, not by hype, but by pure function. Where it all started. The Ruger 10-22 first rolled out in 1964, and since that low-key debut, it's quietly become one of the most commonly owned rimfire rifles in American history. You'll find them tucked away in closets, tool sheds, and gun cabinets, passed down like a worn-out pair of Carhartts. Respected, definitely. Worshipped, not quite. It was always dependable, but rarely considered serious. For many, it was a bridge, the rifle you graduated to after the Red Ryder, but before you picked up your first AR-15. Kind of the awkward middle child of the firearms world. At the same time, the gun market was dominated by aggressive styling flat, dark earth coatings, heavy rails, and booming magnum calibers. Next to all that tactical flash, the 10-22 looked plain. A wood stock and a little rotary mag didn't exactly wow the crowd. If you wanted intimidation, you looked elsewhere. I sure did. Years ago, I picked one up and honestly thought it felt like a toy. No kick. Barely any bark. Just quiet. So I mentally boxed it up. It wasn't flashy, and nobody was showing one off on Instagram. But that little rifle was just waiting. When the world shifted, between 2020 and 2025, the firearms landscape got turned on its head. Ammunition prices climbed through the roof. Even basic rounds like 9mm and 5.56 NATO became rare and expensive. Shooters with families or small groups started feeling the pressure, not just to own a gun, but to keep training with it without going broke. That's when folks started circling back to the 10-22. A box of .22 long rifle was still cheaper than a drive-through burger, even during the worst of the panic runs. You could pick up 500 rounds for less than the price of 2 empty AR-15 mags. And the rifle itself, while most centerfire platforms were pushing $800 or even $1,200, the Ruger still floated under $300 in many stores. That mattered, and people noticed. Function over flash. At a backwoods swap meet in northern Idaho earlier this year, I watched one guy roll in with a plain gray bin. Inside, 5 Ruger 10-22s, each cleaned, sighted in, and tagged with names. No optics, no lasers, no frills. Just ready-to-go rifles. Someone asked him why he didn't just buy 1 or 2 higher-end rifles. His answer was simple. I need a team, not a trophy case. That hit hard. It wasn't about stacking power. It was about spreading capability. Giving your friends, your family, even your neighbors, something they could shoot well. These weren't just rifles. They were a survival plan. The ultimate prepper's tool. Calling the Ruger 10-22 practical feels like an understatement. It's more like the multi-tool of the prepper world. It's light, easy to maintain, and incredibly cost-efficient. But the real strength is how many jobs it handles. At just over 5 pounds, it's easy to sling and forget. Compare that to a decked-out AK or battle rifle that'll wear you down by lunchtime. This thing can be carried by kids, older folks, anyone. And then there's the ammo. .22 long rifle doesn't sound tough, but in a long-term survival scenario, it's a gold mine. You can stash 1,000 rounds in a small drawer. It's light, quiet, and easily suppressed. That makes it perfect for hunting. discreet defense, or signaling without waking up the neighborhood. And if you miss a shot, you're not broadcasting your position to everyone within 5 miles. People get wrapped up in flashy gear, the latest red dots, the most operator chest rig, the coolest suppressor. But when you're planning for months off-grid, on foot, and far from resupply, you keep coming back to the 1022. Not because it looks tough, because it gets the job done. It gives you flexibility, endurance, and control, all things you can't afford to run out of when things go sideways. And that's the genius of it. Quiet, overlooked, underestimated, until it isn't. A platform that grows with you. At first glance, the Ruger 1022 might seem overly plain, almost too simple to take seriously. But hiding beneath that clean, no-nonsense exterior is one of the most versatile rimfire platforms ever built. If the AR-15 is the flashy star quarterback of modern rifles, then the 1022 is the quiet mechanic cousin, keeps to himself, but has a shop full of tools and knows how to build anything you ask for. Nearly every part of the 1022, from the barrel and stock to the bolt, trigger assembly, and optics, can be swapped out or upgraded. Want to break it down into a packable rifle for long hikes? Easy. Need a suppressed setup for pest control? You're covered. From tricked-out precision rigs to tactical builds with drum mags and folding furniture, there's a version of this rifle for just about every scenario out there, and even a few you haven't thought of yet. This level of customization isn't just for range day tinkerers. For serious planners thinking in terms of long-term survival, it's about having a firearms system that's modular, maintainable, and adaptable to change. In a crisis where supply chains collapse and parts are hard to find, owning a rifle that accepts off-the-shelf components is pure gold. One rifle that does 10 jobs beats 10 rifles collecting dust. I know guys who keep multiple 1022s, each set up with a specific role, one tuned for suppressor work, another for youth training, one zeroed for small game hunting, and one stuffed in a vehicle go bag. That's not excess. That's smart redundancy. And the best part? You get to learn it hands-on. The 1022 invites you to dig in and make it yours. It's one of the few rifles that truly rewards both the shooter and the builder. Shedding the toy label. For the longest time, the 1022 didn't get much love from the tactical crowd. It didn't kick, it wasn't loud, and it didn't look operator enough to turn heads. And because of that, a lot of people wrote off 22 long rifle as weak, unreliable, and generally useless for anything beyond teaching kids or popping tin cans. But that's missing the point. Context matters more than caliber. Not every situation calls for full power firepower. Sometimes the mission is to stay unnoticed, keep things quiet, and stretch your resources. Feeding your crew for a week without drawing attention, burning through cash, or waking up the neighborhood. That's where the 1022 becomes invaluable. It doesn't dominate, it just gets the job done. It'll quietly take a squirrel at 40 yards, serve as a starter rifle for brand new shooters, or even deal with a close-up threat without blowing out your eardrums. Folks laugh at the idea of relying on a rimfire right up until the cost of ammunition skyrockets, or someone in the family flinches from recoil. That's when having a rifle that anybody can shoot well, maintain easily, and afford to feed starts looking like an advantage, not a compromise. The people who turn up their noses usually haven't trained under pressure. When survival is about endurance, not firepower, that humble 22 becomes your best friend. It earned its spot the hard way. In the prepping world, gear earns its place through real-world use, not glossy ads. And from around 2022 forward, the Ruger 1022 started showing up more and more. It wasn't hype that got it there. It was function. Preppers started realizing it filled a bunch of roles at once, low maintenance, easy to source, and affordable enough to build in multiples. By the time we hit early 2025, the chatter online had shifted. People weren't just swapping ideas on how to upgrade their AR-15s. They were building full kits around the 1022. I remember a guy from Central Texas sharing photos of his family's 6-rifle loadout. Each had a red dot, a sling, a small cleaning pouch, and ammo cans, labeled with 2,000 rounds per shooter. He wasn't bragging, he was showcasing a working system. Another prep group near Spokane was running weekend field exercises using only 1022s. Their logic was simple: keep training cheap, reduce recoil fatigue, and make every shot count. They didn't need to make a statement, they were building skills. When a rifle keeps showing up in bug-out kits, range bags, and truck boxes, it's not because it looks cool. It's because it does the job. The 10 guns, one system approach. To someone just getting into preparedness, the idea of buying 10 identical rifles sounds like overkill. But that's looking at it like a consumer, not like a planner. When you're preparing for long-term disruptions, what you really need is a repeatable system, something anyone can learn, anyone can run, and anyone can fix. That's where the 1022 shines. Sure, cost is part of it, but the real benefit is uniformity. Training becomes easier. Spare parts become interchangeable. Everyone's using the same mags, the same sights, the same manual of arms. I know a group out in Kentucky that started collecting 1022s in early 2024. By the following summer, they had full kits for 12-people rifles, suppressors, slings, cleaning tools, and shared spare parts bins. In a crisis, when stress peaks and motor skills drop, simplicity becomes priceless. That's when muscle memory matters most. And that's exactly what the 1022 provides. It's not about stockpiling more rifles. It's about building a system that scales without breaking down. Why? It keeps delivering. Among preppers, value gets measured in what actually works, not what looks cool in a photo. And the Ruger 1022 keeps showing up in that reliable, proven, and repeatable column. It's not the flashiest tool in the shed, but it works. And that's what counts. I read a post where a guy passed on buying a $1,000 rifle, not because he didn't want it, but because he couldn't afford to keep it fed. Instead, he invested in bricks of .22 long rifle, a few extra mags, and spent the rest on food and medical gear. That kind of choice doesn't win style points, but it wins in the real world. Another bonus? Training. The 1022 is the perfect confidence builder. New shooters aren't intimidated. No loud blast, no heavy recoil. Whether it's your kid, your neighbor, or your spouse, it's the kind of rifle that welcomes them in. I saw one guy post a setup with 6 rifles, each outfitted with an optic, and 2 ammo cans marked with the shooter's name. 0 overlap, 0 confusion. Just smart, scalable readiness. That's what makes the 1022 stand out. It's not a collector's showpiece. It's a working tool that anyone can run, and that's exactly what matters when everything else is falling apart. Parting thoughts. The Ruger 1022 was never trying to win the popularity contest. It carved out its place by doing what matters most, being reliable, affordable, and adaptable. In a world where overcomplication gets people in trouble, this rifle keeps showing up where it counts, in the hands of those who plan ahead. If you've got your own 1022 setup, I'd love to hear about it. Whether it's your go-to-truck rifle, a training gun for the kids, or part of a long-term prep kit, drop your thoughts down in the comments. And if this breakdown gave you something to chew on, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around. We've got more gear reviews, deep dive strategy, and field-tested insight coming your way. Until next time, stay sharp, stay ready, and take care of your people.